The envelope sat unopened on the kitchen table for 2 days. Not because it looked urgent, but because it looked official. The kind of letter that carries weight even before you read it. It had that government seal in the corner, the kind that makes people pause and say, "I'll open it later." When it was finally opened, it didn't shout. It didn't warn. It simply explained something had changed. It mentioned retirement. It mentioned a court decision. And suddenly, something that had felt stable for years didn't feel as certain anymore. That quiet shift, that moment where nothing looks dramatic but everything feels different, is what many families are starting to experience right now. My name is Sarah, and I have spent years helping families understand how legal decisions quietly show up in real life. I have seen how these changes move through the system before people even realize they are affected. I am here to walk you through it so you are not left guessing. Because when people hear 9-0 Supreme Court decision, it sounds simple. It sounds final. It sounds like something that either helps you or hurts you immediately. But the truth is more subtle than that. And here is the part most people stop reading before they get to. Do not make that mistake. This kind of ruling does not usually change your life overnight. It changes how the system treats your case when it reaches the system. And that difference matters more than people realize. I want to say this clearly so you can take a breath before we go deeper. This is not about fear. This is about understanding what has shifted and where you still have control. Because once you understand how these decisions flow through the system, you stop feeling like things are happening to you, and you start seeing how to respond. Now let me explain how this actually works behind the scenes. When the Supreme Court, the highest court in the United States that interprets federal law, makes a unanimous decision, meaning all 9 justices agree, it sends a very strong signal to federal agencies. Those agencies include the Social Security Administration, SSA, the federal agency responsible for calculating and sending retirement benefits. They also include administrative review offices, internal units that review disputes, corrections, and appeals related to benefits. The court itself does not send checks. It does not calculate payments. What it does is clarify how the law must be applied when there is disagreement. And once that interpretation is set, agencies adjust their internal processes. That means how cases are reviewed, how quickly decisions are made, how strictly rules are applied, and sometimes how errors from the past are corrected. And here is what most people do not see. Those changes do not arrive with a loud announcement. They show up quietly. In a letter, in a recalculation, in a delay, in a request for more information. Stay with me, because this next part applies to people who believed their retirement was already fully settled. The first thing I keep hearing from people sounds like this. This means everyone's Social Security is getting cut. That is not what this ruling does. It does not reduce everyone's benefits across the board. It affects how certain cases are interpreted, especially where there are disputes, corrections, or special situations. The next thing I hear, and this one spreads quickly, is this. If you are already retired, nothing can touch your benefits now. In many cases, payments continue as expected. But if there are errors, inconsistencies, or eligibility questions, those cases can still be reviewed under updated interpretations. Another one I hear often is this. The government can now change your retirement whenever it wants. That is not how the system works. Agencies still have to follow the law. What changed is how that law is interpreted, not the existence of rules themselves. And here is another one people say quietly to each other. This only matters if you are about to retire. The truth is, it can affect both current retirees and those planning to retire, depending on their individual records and circumstances. And here is where even careful, organized people can run into problems. The system depends on records, your work history, your reported income, your filings over the years. If something is missing, outdated, or incorrect, it may not have mattered before. But when rules are applied more consistently or more strictly, those small details become important. A missing year, a misreported job, an uncorrected error. These things can suddenly move from unnoticed to significant. Let me tell you about someone I will call Margaret. Margaret had worked steadily for decades. She believed everything in her record was accurate. When she applied for her benefits, a discrepancy appeared from work she had done years earlier. Before, it might have taken longer to review or might have gone unnoticed for some time. But under updated processes, her case moved faster. The issue had to be resolved immediately before her payments were finalized. Now, I want to be clear. I share stories like this so you can understand how these situations happen in real life, not to identify any one person. And I want to pause here for a moment and acknowledge something that does not always get said. Retirement is deeply personal. It is not just a number. It is peace of mind. It is the expectation that after years of effort, things will become stable. When something shifts, even quietly, it can create a sense of uncertainty. You start wondering if everything is still secure, if your plans will hold, if something you missed years ago could matter now. That feeling is real. But here is where things change. You are not powerless in this situation. Awareness gives you options. Preparation gives you control. And here is where many people feel relief, when they realize there are clear steps they can take. If you are already receiving Social Security and you rely on it for monthly expenses, this is the moment to make sure your records are accurate and up to date. If you have applied for retirement and you are waiting for approval, this is when reviewing your work history carefully becomes important. If you have worked different types of jobs, full-time, part-time, contract, this is where small differences in reporting can matter. If you are helping a parent manage their retirement, this is where organization and attention to detail protect them. And here is the part people are most grateful they stayed for, because this is where you take action. First, review your Social Security earnings record, the official history used to calculate your benefits. Second, gather your past tax returns and employment records so you can verify accuracy if needed. Third, read any notice you receive carefully and do not ignore deadlines. Fourth, if something does not look right, contact the Social Security Administration or a qualified advisor before making assumptions. And here is something I need to say very directly, because I have seen this happen too many times. There are scammers who appear exactly at moments like this. They call, they send messages, they claim they can protect your benefits or increase your retirement immediately. That is not how the system works. No one can legally adjust your benefits outside official channels. If someone asks for money or personal information with urgency, that is a warning sign. Let me tell you about someone I will call Robert. Robert received a call telling him his benefits were at risk because of new court rules. The caller sounded official. They pushed him to act quickly. He paused. He spoke with someone he trusted. And he realized it was not legitimate. That one decision protected him. And again, I share this so you can recognize the situation, not to identify any specific person. There is another step many people do not realize they can take. If you are having difficulty resolving an issue with a federal agency like the Social Security Administration, you can contact your congressional representative's constituent services office. That simply means staff in your local elected official's office who help residents communicate with federal agencies. They cannot change the law, but they can help move communication forward when things feel stuck. And I want to remind you of something important. You still have control. You have the right to review your information. You have the right to ask questions. You have the right to understand anything before you agree to it. These are not small protections. They are how you protect your future. And here is the perspective I want to leave you with. Legal decisions come and go. Interpretations change. Processes shift. But the foundation of retirement systems does not disappear overnight. People who stay informed, who check their records, and who respond early when something feels off, move through these changes with far more confidence. So, take a breath, look at your information, and move forward with clarity. I read the comments carefully, and if you want to share your situation or ask a question, you can write it below. I will do my best to help you understand what is happening so you are not navigating it alone.